After the release of the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, Scott Cawthon had his hands full, as the newly developed fanbase was anticipating a new installment to this series. And while there were some teasers that came out that did indeed confirm that a new installment was coming, what surprised people was how quickly it came out. And what surprised people even more was how good it was despite that. Now, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, in contrast to my opinion to Fnaf 1, is actually a really good game in my opinion. And for some reason, this is now considered a hot take. I think? Well, I'm not exactly sure. I've seen video essays talking about how this is the worst one, but I also asked you guys if you thought Fnaf 2 was a good game, and the majority of you said yes. So, some of you may be shocked to hear that I actually think Five Nights 2 is the best one, at least in terms of what I've played so far. I haven't beaten any of the games past 3. But I do think it's kind of weird to say the least, because I think this game fixes a lot of the issues that the first game had, and also introduced some new ones. Well, I think to start right off the bat is that I think this game has a great atmosphere, just like the first game. However, if I were to pick which one is better, I think Fnaf 1 has the better atmosphere. But that's not to say that Fnaf 2 is lacking in any sort of way. It feels a bit more high budget and futuristic, which works because it makes the game feel bigger. And that's a nice segue to talking about the animatronics. We have the toy variants and the withered variants. And I love the concept of there being two different versions of the animatronics, with the withered variants being much more threatening. However, while it makes up in quantity, it doesn't result in good quality. I'm sorry, but none of these animatronics look scary. Maybe offstage Toy Chica is a bit scary, but they either look too cute in the case of the toy animatronics or too cool in the case of the withered animatronics. They look threatening, but not intimidating. And look, I'm not MatPat, so I'm not too well versed in the deep hidden lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. However, if these animatronics are the same from the first game, they look very inconsistent. And based off what I've heard and seen, these are the same animatronics from the first game, and I just find that so odd because there's so many design inconsistencies that just make it look really abnormal. But hey, at least it's not as bad as Scrap Trap and Spring Trap. Really, you're telling me these two animatronics are supposed to be the same character? Alright, get out of here. But aside from visual aesthetics, what about the gameplay? Well, while I don't think this game is scary anymore, I can definitely see the attempt Scott Cawthon made at trying to make this one scarier than the last, with the higher quantity of animatronics, more mechanics to deal with, and the complete and utter lack of doors. While the last game made you feel like you were trapped, this game makes you feel exposed and vulnerable, and I could see first-time players getting stressed and freaked out over it. I know I certainly did when I first played the game. So if there are no doors, how do you defend yourself? By using the iconic Freddy Fazbear mask. Ever since I saw the teaser for this on Scott's website before the game came out, I thought this was super cool in a meta sense. Is that the right word to use? I don't know. Because in the first game when the animatronics killed you, they'd stuff your body inside an empty animatronic suit. This is alluded by the phone guy who says that the animatronics see you as a naked endoskeleton without their costume on. So, it makes complete sense to use this mask as a way to defend yourself. However, I don't understand why Fazbear Entertainment didn't continue to use the mask in the first game, considering the fact that, you know, this is a prequel. But hey, what do I know? But this mask is what you use to defend yourself with. However, you can't keep the mask on for too long, as there are two other animatronics that need to be dealt with in other ways. First, you have Withered Foxy. If he isn't in the parts and service room, he's standing in the hall, and you have to flash your light at him to keep him from attacking you. But you need to be careful with how much you use it, because while the building finally has power in this game, your flashlight doesn't. So just like the first game, you want to keep power into consideration, even if it isn't the building power. Then there's the puppet, which is the best and worst mechanic of this game. Basically, you have to wind up the music box every now and then because if it unwinds fully, the puppet gets out and kills you. And this is kind of problematic. While it does fix the issue of there not having a reason to look at the cameras much, it does the job too well. You get what I mean? Like, the music box winds down so quickly after night 1, so much to the point where it's pretty much superfluous to look at the other cameras, because there's too many animatronics to focus on, and if Foxy and the puppet are invulnerable to the mask, and I have to deal with them in different ways, I'm obviously gonna prioritize them over looking at the cameras for other animatronics. There's no point because it's too risky. I'm not gonna go skimming through the cameras just to see where an animatronic is because it comes at the cost of flashlight power and time. Time that Foxy uses to get you, time that the puppet's music box winds down, time that is essential to your survival. However, like I said, this is the best and worst part of the game. Because yes, the game is very hard. It's too hard. So hard that it ruins the overall concept of the game. You know, flipping through the cameras as a security guard. But at the same time, it's really fun. Like I said in the first Five Nights at Freddy's video, I stated that after a while you get to see the RNG of some components, and because of that, you could develop strategies that cheese the game entirely. But while there are strategies for this game, you have to know them like the back of your hand. You have to know sound cues, know where animatronics will be at certain times, and just a whole bunch of other crap that honestly isn't worth going through, in my opinion at least. I know a lot of people who love that sort of mentality. But that's the thing, if you're playing Five Nights at Freddy's 2 casually, even after your first time playing through the game is consistently very challenging, and as a result of such, it makes for a very fun gameplay loop. You have to come up with all of these different methods to defend yourself for enough time just for 6 AM to hit the clock. And Scott knew this, because that is why he created the custom night mode. Yes, there is a custom night mode in the first game, but it felt more like a reward you got for beating the 6th night. This game has that too, but with additional challenges. This game literally has replay value. A Five Nights at Freddy's game having replay value. That is insane, and I absolutely love it. And I love it just as much as I love the story. One of the reasons why Five Nights at Freddy's 1 got so popular was because of the mysterious hidden lore. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a prequel to Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and as a result of such, we're given a lot more information on the history of the Fazbear brand. In the first game, we were told that the Fazbear company has had an interesting history to say the least, with a plethora of child murders happening, resulting not only in the restaurants shutting down because of it, but also the animatronics being haunted. In this game, we were actually given a bit of an identity of who this killer is. He's represented as this purple stick figure. We'll just call him the purple guy for now. Yes, I know he's called William Afton, but you're not supposed to know that yet. Anyway, we're shown that this purple man is responsible for the murders of these children. However, one of the spirits of the dead children, specifically the puppet, decided to give those kids an extra shot at life by putting their souls into the very animatronics their bodies were in when they died. But that's all we're pretty much shown in this game. I love how this story is a lot more explicit, yet equally hidden at the same time. Most of the time, you don't even get cutscenes, you just get these Atari-style minigames that show off what's happening, and that's not even putting into account all of the visual cues and phone calls you get each night. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a much better game than Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Sure, it may not be as scary. Sure, the environments may not be as good. And sure, it may break the entire point of it being a Five Nights at Freddy's game. But if you put all of that aside, you actually get a pretty decent horror game that I think still holds up to this day. I honestly wish I had face cam on while recording. There were some jump scares that legitimately caught me off guard while playing this again. So after Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out, the already huge fan base had gotten even bigger, and as a result of such, expectations for the new third game would be up high, and I was extremely hyped. This was probably the most hyped for a game I had ever been outside of the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy. So when the game finally came out, did it meet my expectations? Was it any better than Fnaf 2? Well, find out next time when— oh, forget— you know what? Screw this
stupid script. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is terrible. It is the worst one. It is easily my least favorite game in the entire series, and that says a lot because I've played Security Breach. This game is not scary, it is boring, and sure, it may have introduced my favorite animatronic, but it ain't enough to fix it. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 sucks. It's terrible, it is awful, and I do not want to play it again.